Listener, it's doom and gloom out there, but there's always reason for hope, Richard, and that's because Sadler and Thomas is back on the air. How are you, Richard?
Joy, oh joy!
How are your stocks, Richard? How's your investment portfolio looking, Richard?
Well, Michael, on the STIX, which is the stock market that we're listed on, it's right. we are the only stock, but we're doing very well.
That's right.
Index.
I think our compound hilarity levels are excellent at the moment. The compound hilarity index is particularly good.
Absolutely. Our P ratio, I've no idea what that is, but our P ratio is excellent.
I like that. Try to come up with financial phrases. P ratio, why not? That sounds good enough to me.
I've seen P ratio written places, so I'm going to say that and hope that it kind of carries at least some sense.
I think P ratio isn't P ratio the measure that they use on the financial traders to how many P breaks they take during the day, and that's an index, an index of how how keen they are. Not P ratio, PE ratio. Michael, do you know nothing? Dear me, I don't. You can't get the co-hosts these days, certainly not ones who know about profit and earnings ratios. Oh dear, I'm appalled, Michael. I was going for the PEE ratio, Richard. I'm sorry, I was one letter out. What can I do?
You've got bladders on the brain. This is why you are CTO and not CFO of this little enterprise that we have.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. You can stick to being in charge of the technology.
Did you hear that, listener? Richard just pulled rank on me. In that case, Richard, start us off with your first story then.
I didn't say what rank I was, Michael. I just said what you weren't. So there you go. I'll leave the listener to read into that.
You outranked me. I think I could draw you a diagram, Richard, and it would identify you up a level from me. Anyway, get on. Come on. The listener's waiting now. It's one of those awkward scenes in the office where things get a little bit personal unnecessarily in the meeting. The junior staff are sitting there in the corner going, "Ooh, that was exciting." Anyway.
I'm not convinced there's any rush, Michael. I think the listener always enjoys me having my ego stroked. So we'll just bask in it for a moment.
To have a little bit of dead air to let
just
people
a little bit more. Here I am basking. That was lovely. No, I enjoyed that very much.
Onward.
Yeah. Okay, Michael. I bring you a tale all the way from Pennsylvania, USA, of theft. Not just ordinary theft, Michael. This is grand theft sandwich.
Whoa.
Yes, because a 13-year-old boy has been robbed of his meatball sandwich. And robbed in fine style. He was held up at gunpoint by 2 robbers who demanded his meatball sandwich. Michael, you can imagine that the 13-year-old would have been quite traumatized by this experience, particularly when one of the robbers, soon discovered to have been a 21-year-old, said, "Whatever you do, don't move. If you do anything, I'll cap you." It's refreshing to know that some Americans do actually talk faintly like we make them out
to. I mean, that's the the genius of the stereotype, Richard. This is extraordinary. So the sandwiches are now being stolen at gunpoint.
Sandwich being stolen. I mean, all I can imagine was a particularly tasty-looking meatball sandwich. Now, the robbers, it wasn't the best thought-through crime, inevitably. They had the gun, and they acquired the sandwich. They even made off in a getaway car. So they had most things covered. Unfortunately, whilst they were stealing the sandwich, they didn't think to steal the 13-year-old boy's mobile phone. So as soon as they departed the scene, the first thing he did was whip out his mobile phone, dialed 911, gave them the license plate of the disappearing getaway car, and the police recovered both gun and sandwich.
Press 1 for sandwich crime. Richard, when Lord Sandwich invented the sandwich, yes. I don't think he would have seen this coming. I think the institution of the sandwich is it's a dark day for the institution of the sandwich, Richard.
It is, but it also shows that the sandwich is such a significant part of our cultural heritage and international folklore to be worth stealing at gunpoint.
Well, apparently either that or the guy was just jolly hungry.
Either that or he was just really hungry.
I thought, what have I got to lose? Other than a sandwich, obviously.
Other than the sandwich, I'm quite impressed with the poise of the young man who was robbed, though, having just been robbed at gunpoint, albeit only of a sandwich, to immediately whip out his mobile phone and call 911 whilst the car was still in sight to give them the license plate. Well, I think that's quite good.
We need to think about self-defense sandwich here. And surely this is where having a large amount of, say, mayonnaise, potentially some kind of spicy sauce in there as well, so that when you're being held up at gunpoint, you can just squeeze the sandwich. The spicy sauce goes into the assailant's eye, giving you crucial seconds to get away.
Yes, or either that, or we all need to start carrying a sacrificial sandwich in the same way as in high crime areas. Sometimes you're advised to have a really crap mobile phone or a wallet that's only got a couple of quid in it that you can give away if held up. A sacrificial sandwich.
The decoy sandwich.
Send out
the decoy sandwich.
Oh no, it's the salad sandwich. Oh, use that as the decoy. Keep the meatball sandwich.
Wonderful scenes from 24 with Jack Bauer going down one street and the decoy sandwich going down the other street.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love it, Richard. So this is what crime's come to now, has it?
This is what crime's come to in the increasingly desperate world in which we live, Michael. Sandwich crime appears, in Philadelphia at least, to be on the rise.
Sandwich crime being held up at sandwich point, Richard. Hand over
yes.
all your money or the sandwich gets it.
Indeed.
Richard, all the way from Philadelphia to Japan.
Oh!
Where they have developed a motorbike that can run on effluent, as in human and animal waste.
Yes.
And to show off this new technology, they've put together a special motorbike featuring a toilet seat as the actual seat on the bike. And Ichi Tanaka has just rode 300 kilometers at speeds of up to 70 kilometers per hour across Japan to market this new technology. Quite stunning.
This is an absolutely remarkable technology, Michael. I can't believe it wasn't invented before. I mean, there's such an obvious use case for it.
Well, obviously. Sadly, Richard, it isn't actually a self-loading toilet seat. The toilet seat is just there for marketing purposes. They also have sadly, the technology is not extended to a burger dispenser on one side, feeding burgers into the rider, with the effluent coming out at the other end, feeding the engine directly. No, sadly, you have to have the effluent pre-processed in a facility and loaded in. But it's still an interesting step forward in the biofuels. But Ichi Tanaka, after 1,400 kilometers total riding across Japan to promote the new biofuels technology, said that she was, wait for it, relieved. The journey was over.
Oh dear.
See what they did there. Richard. It was worth it for that, really, the whole article.
It was worth it. Just the entire story boiled down to that one pun, Michael. And frankly, it was well worth the wait. That's the sort of pun that gets me up in the middle of the night.
It's the sort of pun that keeps
my sleeping wife.
It's the sort of pun that keeps the dregs of the Reuters journalist community going through a hard day of slow news.
Do we know whether Ichi Tanaka, how did she, given that she couldn't provide her own effluent, or at least not on the go, how did she be fuel en route? Do we know?
I believe, well, it doesn't, this, I'm afraid, article does not give us such technical information, Richard.
No. Because it's similar to electric vehicles. I mean, until there are charging points, if you're going to go that distance,
that's true.
You can't just recharge at home. You can't refill your effluent tank at home if you're doing such a large distance.
That's true. So, I mean, in the United Kingdom, you could be fairly certain that there would be open pools of effluent at most motorway service stations that you could make use of.
Yes.
I would imagine in Japan things are a little bit cleaner. You might have to go to some sort of effluent dispenser.
Indeed, and you probably have to program in, swipe your swipe card, which contains your preferred effluent ratio for the vehicle that you are propelling, and obviously you get to choose the color, because this is Japan and they like to customize things, so you can have whatever color you like.
What color of effluent, or color of? So the effluent could come out in various bright green, bright orange, perhaps maybe stripes.
So steady. I'm a sucker for purple effluent. I mean, that's if I've got to be confronted with human waste, the purpler the better is what I always say. It's one of my little rules of life, Michael. Just like having a grapefruit for breakfast every day.
Well, the whole thing is a marketing stunt by the Japanese toilet maker Toto.
Oh, it's a marketing stunt. I should have known.
Well, all these things are. But wonderful technology, Richard. I'm looking forward to powering my life with my own effluent.
Well, I always note the make of toilet on which I am performing. So if ever I note a Toto toilet beneath my posterior, I will give it extra welly, because I know that my production could be going to an extremely good cause.
It could be good. You could be going to save the world, Richard.
Now, Michael, one of the many wonderful things about the internet is the easy access that it has given everybody to images that amuse them because they involve pictures of cats. Okay? Because there are so many websites on the internet where you can see amusing pictures of cats, cats doing things, cats saying things, indeed all the way down to the famous blog Stuff on My Cat, pictures of cats with stuff on them.
That's an interesting idea, really, because they're combining the world of cats with the world of stuff into one concept. And, you know, it's that kind of convergence of ideas, Richard, which really enables us to make that kind of breakthrough with the consumer.
And I think the key word you used there, Michael, was enabling, and that's one of the big that's an absolutely key plank of the strategy for the cat marketing takeover of the world. But Michael, they've got competition because squirrels are getting in on the action, or at least Florida squirrels in the garden of retired postwoman Kathy. Now it's spelled Pryn, so I'm going with Prune. I've decided Prune. So Kathy Prune.
Kathy
Prune is a big fan of squirrels, and she likes to take pictures of squirrels. But, you know, taking pictures of squirrels is only going to get you so far as a hobby.
It might get you into the local squirrel magazine.
Indeed. Well, she has been
leadership of 3.
You know, absolutely. You know how it goes, Michael. You always want to be pushing the envelope further and further when it comes to squirrel photography. You're not just satisfied with them burying a nut or scampering up a tree. Sooner or later, you need them to be doing all sorts of interesting things.
It's all about challenging the form, Richard. It's about challenging form.
It is. And it's about taking it to the next logical step in its evolution.
Is she going Art Nouveau, perhaps? Maybe some avant-garde, perhaps abstract squirrel.
Not abstract. She's actually gone down the diorama route because she has been bribing squirrels with peanuts to pose for a series of quote-unquote hilarious photographs, because she's been acquiring all manner of dolls' furniture and setting it up in such a way with strategically concealed peanuts, so that when the squirrel notes the peanut and moves in to consume the peanut, in the act of acquiring the peanut, the squirrel necessarily poses hilariously among the doll's furniture.
Richard, it's a wonderful
idea. And this enables her, waiting at her camera, Michael, to snap unrepeatable images of squirrels at their most vulnerable, Michael, at their most relaxed, when they think nobody's watching. For example, sitting at a piano, bashing out a few chords, or apparently singing into a microphone, even playing pool. Mrs. Prune has managed to capture squirrels caught in the act of doing all of these everyday activities, the things that you knew squirrels always did. It's just that being reclusive creatures, I've never seen a squirrel playing pool.
Well,
and now, thanks to Mrs. Prune, we have the opportunity to see that.
Well, she's given us a crucial insight into the squirrel civilization. And I'm particularly interested in her method of bribing a squirrel. I quite like the notion that she would potentially send a letter to, say, the sort of head squirrel, perhaps, or the squirrel leader, to say, come and pose in these gaudy photographs of playing piano and pool, etc. Otherwise, we'll release those tapes of you and Mrs. Squirrel.
Well, luckily it hasn't descended into such blackmail, Michael. It's more situational bribery, in that she knows the squirrels hang out in her garden, and if she puts a nut strategically among her doll's furniture, she can often get them to pose just as she wants them, Michael. And this is the thing that's keeping her going through her retirement, because, you know, the alternative is just dying. So she might as well at least do something.
I mean, I'm glad you cleared up that squirrels don't actually have an established ethical code. But, you know, I mean, it was important the listener was made clear of that these are just random pictures of squirrels.
Absolutely.
They don't really have an understanding of what a piano is.
They don't.
Let alone a triad or a suspended fourth.
I mean, how many times have you seen a squirrel perform a suspended fourth?
Well, very rarely. Very rarely. Gil Scott's squirrel was pretty good, but, you know...
It's all about the sustain pedal. But according to Mrs. Prune, she says, sometimes they eat too fast and I can't get the picture. Other times they run off with the toy and leave it in a tree. So it's not all plain sailing for Mrs. Prune. Sometimes the squirrels
fight. For her, isn't it? Really, I mean,
sometimes the squirrels fight back.
She's encountering all sorts of barriers to her lifelong mission. So
but that's what keeps it. That's what keeps it interesting to her, Michael. That it's all about the challenge.
Every day is different. You know, it's never a boring day in the office for her. No, it really isn't. It really isn't. Wonderful, Richard. Is she going to be having squirrels with top hats and bow ties?
If she can figure out a way of attaching a peanut in the requisite location, I fully expect it, Michael. I will bring you an update should any more news of this squirrel photography pass my desk.
Well, it's warmed my heart, Richard.
Absolutely.
And it's certainly reminded me of my favourite cat concept on the internet, which is Infinite Cat. Well worth a look out at Infinite Cat.
I'm not familiar with Infinite Cat.
Infinite Cat, where you post a picture of your cat looking at your computer screen, displaying the picture of the previous cat, looking at the previous cat, and so on and so on.
It's clever.
See what they did there?
It's clever.
Infinite Cat. It's a wonderful...
Cat plus recursion equals internet joy.
It does. It equals internet joy and incredible numbers of hours unproductive. It's quite extraordinary, Richard, how much time you can waste on such a website. Just as how much time you can waste listening to Sadler and Thomas, Richard, which is available where? And
Sadler and Thomas Investigations.wordpress.com. Communicate with us via email, Sadler and Thomas Investigations @gmail.com. Hit us up on the Book of Faces, where we are the Sadler and Thomas Investigations fan club.
That's right.
Fan club. Badges not available.
South Korea, Richard, has been inundated with requests for caesarean sections on November the 11th.
Right. Why?
Well, there's two. Initially, you think when you're reading the story, this is going to be a fairly mundane story about people just wanting their kids to be born on 11/11/11.
Yeah.
Because it looks good. But it turns out that no, in South Korea, November the 11th is known as Pepero Day, or Sweetest Day, which in South Korea is similar to Valentine's Day, and it was named after the Korean snack, the chocolate snack, Pepero, which are chocolate sticks. And apparently it was named after this because 11/11 looks like 4 Pepero sticks.
Oh, steady.
So
it being 11/11/11.
Sweep.
So 11/11/11 is 50% sweeter.
That's right. Well done. So therefore, women have been literally jumping over themselves and the doctors and nurses to get to the caesarean sections so that they can have their children on legendary Pepero Day. But I thought I would look up a little bit more detail into this Pepero Day, which apparently you would have thought would have been the creation of some marketing consultants such as ourselves, Richard, because that's the sort of wonderful idea that marketing consultants come up with. But no, Lottie, which is the make of the brand, claims that they did not start the holiday, and instead they noticed, looking at their stats and their graphs, Richard, which is what the sort of thing that marketing consultants do, they noticed a bump in the Pepero sales at around November the 11th.
Holy cow.
What could this be? What
could be the explanation for this apparent anomaly?
But they put aside their worries, their existential worries about what could be the anomaly, and immediately saw an opportunity.
What a relief.
Well, it's the sort of thing that marketing consultants do, Richard.
Yes.
And they decided to encourage the holiday with a special gift set and other promotions. And now it's become a sensation in South Korea, to the point where women are willing to have voluntary caesarean sections to celebrate a chocolate snack, which I think is quite an extraordinary cultural apparition.
That's entirely remarkable, Michael. And, the conversation's 18 years down the line. Mummy, how come I was born, 3 months premature and never got above the height of 4 feet? Well, darling, back when you were born, there was a brand of chocolate. and the chocolate was named Peppero. Oh, Peppero. The marketing consultants, dear, they had us wrapped around their little fingers, and we decided that we were going to haul you, unwilling, kicking and screaming from my womb 3 months early, just so you could be born on Peppero Day.
But Richard, the Japanese consumer is a far more sophisticated beast, as I'm sure you're aware from your daily updates, and because Peppero is a brand that was based on a Japanese brand.
Oh,
and after the success of Peppero Day, the Japanese decided to follow suit and create
inevitably
Pocky Day, which is the name.
Pocky Day.
But unfortunately, it has failed to gain traction, Richard, much to the chagrin of the Japanese consultants.
Those fickle Japanese. They're not as easily. They don't have the wool pulled over their eyes as easily as their Korean counterparts.
Well, no, they didn't. I mean, it's perhaps because the chocolate snack wasn't interactive enough. Didn't come with a free laser gun or other such entertainment device, I believe, that the kids have these days.
Michael, just to finish off on the theme of 11-11-11, I'll just recount to you a most amusing tweet that I saw this week. I wouldn't normally repeat other people's jokes, but it's much funnier than any of ours, so I will do. And the tweet read, 11-11-11. No, hang on, I've got it wrong. That's always good when you tell a joke and get it wrong, isn't it? Wow, listener, you what a treat it is this evening to be joined by me.
It's good that Richard's ego has gone from hero to zero in the course of 20 minutes. Let something amazing here, Richard.
Let me have another bash at that. Here we go. Here was the tweet in its full glory. The tweet read...
Shall I do a drum roll?
Please do.
That was a drum roll.
It read, it's not 11-11-11, it's 11-11-11, bloody Americans. Which I thought was absolutely hilarious. It would have been more amusing had I managed to get it out the first time. But not to worry. This is all a learning experience. We're growing here, listener. This is there's growing pains, our development as a podcast, as individuals, and as a community. These are all the things that add up to a warm sense of community spirit. And on the topic of community spirit, Michael, that time for coming together, family, friends, communities, is almost upon us. That's right.
Are we emerging into the holiday season, Richard? The holiday season.
Entering the festive season, Michael. I'm bringing you Sadler and Thomas. Is it our first Christmas story, or maybe there was one last episode? I'm not sure. But anyway, getting into the topic of Christmas, and soon enough it'll be time to put up those Christmas decorations to bring a little festive cheer to living rooms around the world.
Well, as the nights draw in, Richard, we have to try and artificially cheer ourselves up. So yes,
absolutely, Michael. Well, a family resident in Ohio. In Vandalia, Ohio, to be precise, had not yet put up their Christmas decorations. The Henderson family, they hadn't put up the tree yet and put up the lights and all the rest of it, which is fair enough. It's still the middle of November. My decorations certainly aren't up yet. But this was altogether too late for local resident Terry Trent, because he let himself into the house in Vandalia, lit a candle, turned on the television, and proceeded to put up all the Christmas decorations he could find in the house. He was discovered by 11-year-old Tamara Henderson, who came home to find Mr. Trent sitting on the sofa watching television, having put up all the Christmas decorations. 11-year-old Tamara had her wits about her and immediately called her her mother, who was next door at the neighbour, and the police to come and deal with Mr. Trent. Police arrived, and he was subsequently discovered, I'm afraid, Michael, that there was substance abuse involved. This was not just a story of a neighbourhood ruffian, a neighbourhood scamp putting in a little bit of festive good cheer. No, Michael, he'd been
drugs.
It wasn't quite hard drugs, but he'd been hitting the substances. He was high on bath salts. That's right. We all know what a scourge bath salts can be in Ohio, because it's the combination of easy access to bath salts and the permissive culture that exists around bath salts, particularly in Vandalia, Ohio, that leads to ordinary members of the public suddenly finding themselves watching television in a stranger's house, having decorated it for Christmas.
Yes.
According to Mrs. Henderson, when she confronted him when she came home, Mr. Trent said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I'll get my things and go."
Well...
Which is a very measured response.
Richard, substance abuse at Christmas... Not the first time we've heard of such things, but I think it's a bit of a stretch to blame the bath salts. I mean, I appreciate that if you're cleaning the bathroom, for example, and you've got plenty of cleaning fluid out, or you've got various bath salts out in large amounts, you might get a slight feeling of lightheadedness, and you might sort of maybe drift off to sleep and feel a little bit away with the fairies. But it's a bit of a leap to go from that to breaking into a neighbour's house.
Absolutely.
And putting up their Christmas decorations. I mean, I'm just suggesting it's maybe a little bit more complex than just the bath salts.
Well, it could be. Your interpretation is interesting, though. You're suggesting that the bath salts are cleaning products, which I hadn't thought of. I thought bath salts were things you put in the bath while you were having a bath.
I think you're right. I think I was confused for a moment there, Richard. It's probably,
but your explanation makes far more sense, because I mean, I don't put that much Radox into my bath when I'm having a bath. I didn't know you could get high on bath salt. To think we've been missing out all these years.
I'm pretty certain the listener will be heading to the bath immediately after this podcast to find out. No, you're right. Bath salts are the things you drop in the bath to engage that. But I mean, I was just suggesting I've never felt high after bath salts, but I've had a bit of a light head after lots of cleaning fluids have been out
but the mind boggles. I mean, how did Terry Trent get himself so high on bath salts other than by having a bath? And does this therefore mean that he was naked or dressed in bath attire when he went round to the neighbours?
You can get some quite snazzy upmarket bath salts, especially around this festive period, in fact.
True.
Which do look remarkably like chocolate sweets.
So you're suggesting that he ingested them?
I'm suggesting perhaps he mistook the bath salt for a lovely Tunnocks cream cake, and he munched into it. He munched into it and scoffed it down with a childlike grin on his face, only to realise too late that it wasn't in fact the Tunnocks cream cake, and was in fact a bath salt block. And at that moment he realised because of his childhood dalliance that he was going to enter into a realm of Christmas festivities at a local neighbour's house.
Those are good. I don't eat enough of those. Thank you for reminding me that they exist. I'm thinking of the right thing, aren't they? They come in the gold and red wrapping foil.
That's absolutely right, Richard. They are a fine institution.
Good.
Richard, I think on the note of cream cakes, it seems like an apt point to finish the show, Richard.
I agree.
I feel that's the sort of soaring rhetoric that is only conceivable way to finish tonight's episode. Any final thoughts?
The only way, Michael, to make an episode of Sadler and Thomas Investigations sweeter is to consume it while also consuming a Tunnocks cream cake. That's the way to go.